Yo, what is going on, people? It is good to see you. Welcome back to another video. Man, 2018 has been a really interesting year thus far. Already, a few weeks in, we've got one of the biggest bangers of the year. Deadpool a few years ago shattered all types of expectations. Now we got Black Panther. Black Panther essentially looked at those records and was like, nah, fuck that shit. We're going for the crown. We're going for above and beyond. And that's what they succeeded in doing. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be having a long-winded discussion on everything about the beautiful nation of Wakanda. Wakanda forever. And I think that's how they did in the movie, right? It was like this? Or it was like this. I think it was like this, right? I don't know, I'm just fishing for a thumbnail. I like this pose better. It makes me look more stoic. Anyways, I'm gonna stop wasting y'all time because I've been bullshitting. Let's talk about Black Panther. This isn't a discussion about how it shattered all types of expectations, and it's certainly not a discussion about what Black Panther means for the culture and all this nonsense. You wanna know why me as a black man with glasses is not having that discussion? Because Black Panther, first and foremost, is the next chapter in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I've been with this universe since day one, and I'm looking at this movie as a Marvel movie first and foremost. But hey, being a black man and seeing what we got on screen, predominantly black cast, black director, and it's shattering expectations, that's just icing on the cake. Because what we want is a good freaking Marvel movie. And did they deliver? Did they deliver on that? Y'all already know the answer to this. They did, man. Black Panther was fuego, man. They definitely brought the heat with this movie. And it's so funny because if you guys look through all my past videos, I really wasn't looking forward to Black Panther that much. Just looking at the way the Marvel Cinematic Universe was around the time of Age of Ultron, you know, I liked some of the movies that came out, but I was sort of hesitant. I mean, because you had Iron Man 3, which was kind of you had Thor the Dark World, which was kind of and then you had Age of Ultron, which I liked, but I still felt it was compared to the first Avengers. So I was kind of scared about the future, and then Civil War was announced, and I was like, oh God, what is Marvel doing? But yo, the Russo brothers, man, the Russo brothers, do not doubt these guys. Especially with the way they handled not only a Captain America story, an Iron Man story, but introducing Black Panther himself and teasing Wakanda. I was on board, officially on board. And then when they brought Ryan Coogler, he directed Creed, I was like, yo, this is gonna be crazy, man. And then they started announcing all the cast. They got Lupita, they got Forrest Whitaker, they got, well, at the time, he was the Human Torch. I was like, all right, we're gonna leave this alone for a bit. But I was excited, man. And you know, all this hype, it's honestly warranted. I definitely do feel that Black Panther lives up and surpasses all the expectations that we have set for the movie for various reasons. Now, like all my previous videos, I like to talk about the movie first and foremost and then dive into the spoiler territory. So keep in mind that I'm going to be kind of tiptoeing around certain aspects and it might not sound like it makes a lot of sense until we get to the spoiler section. But first and foremost, one thing I love about Black Panther more than anything is how well this movie works as a standalone product. You see, a lot of times when we're watching all of these genre movies, not just superhero movies, but when we watch a lot of these movies that are based off of comic books or they're based off of old cartoons, they have a tendency to kind of, you know, go towards one or the other. Either it's going to be completely unrelated to the source material that they're adapting and they're going to try to go for this, it's a movie about that, or they're going to try to go heavy on the fan service and it sucks as being a movie. It's kind of hard to strike that balance, but what I've been noticing with a lot of Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, not all of them, but with movies like the very first Iron Man, with Winter Soldier especially, Civil War, and now Black Panther, we're finally getting to the point where we have these movies that stand alone as movies. You can watch them, enjoy them as not only a fan of film, but also as a Marvelite. Like, you can do these things and everything just works flawlessly. And that's what I got to give up to Ryan Coogler, Kevin Feige, all the guys who worked on this movie, because it just works as a movie. There's a lot of things in Black Panther that I'm watching that I would see in another movie. It just has a Black Panther skin on it. And that is a well-deserved compliment. I don't want you guys to look at this as, oh, so it's just a movie that they retrofitted into a Black Panther installment. No, it's a movie that is very organic in what it does. So we're gonna go down the list of all the things that I loved in the movie. First off, I loved the imagery of Wakanda. I already knew, just looking at the trailers and the promotional photos, that this was gonna be one of the most visually striking superhero movies, and it was. I loved the world of Wakanda. I loved just the imagery that exists in there. It's so modern, but it's also so retro at the same time. Retro is not really the best term to use. It sounds like I'm talking about video games, but it's true. Like it didn't sacrifice all of the African roots just to make things look so futuristic. Looking at all the character designs and the costumes and the garbs that they wear, you know, it's very, very heavily influenced by African culture, and not just blanket statement, oh, this is African culture. No, you have a lot of different tribes in the movie, and they all represent different parts, and it's like a mix and mash of everything you love about African culture. And it's beautiful because of that, because it doesn't sacrifice those things for the sake of being a movie that has to appeal to everyone. No, it is unashamed. It is proud of what it is. It is a black movie first and foremost. And I know some people are going to say, well, a black movie? Like, you wouldn't go around saying this is a white movie. No, like there's just certain things about this African culture that, you know, is inherently black, and it's a black movie because of it. There's no shame in that. It's not trying to make it sort of a race war or whatever, but there's certain aspects of this movie that is very heavily influenced by this part of the world, and it's so much better because of it. Looking at the musical score, oh my God, I think this is one of the biggest highlights in all of Marvel movies. I definitely think that this is probably the best score we've seen in a Marvel movie. It's right up there with the original Guardians of the Galaxy. And when you look at Guardians of the Galaxy, the main focal point of why we loved that movie's score wasn't even just the score. It was actually just the selection from Peter Quill's Awesome Mix. But this one, it just has a genuine score that has so much life. Like it has the superhero vibes ingrained in the soundtrack, but it also mixes in a lot of the African stuff as well. And it just works. It just works. Everything in this movie friggin' works, man. Like just the scenery and the landscapes of Wakanda and everything. It's just a joy to look at. And I saw it in IMAX as well. IMAX 2D, mind you. Thankfully, no 3D nonsense, because I'm kind of tired of that. And it was just amazing. It was just breathtaking to see all the sights. Now, moving on to some things, I'm going to do like a bit of back and forth. Some things I didn't like about the movie. While it is very visually stunning and it is just a joy to look at, I'm about to be real with y'all. I think Black Panther had some of the worst CG that I've seen in a Marvel movie. There are certain shots in this movie, which obviously, of course, you know it's going to be green screen. It's very obvious that they couldn't recreate it. But certain things, it's like, did you really have to green screen that? Did you really have to make that CG? Like, there's a lot of moments in this movie, you know, just standard sit-down stuff where they would have a CG T'Challa and he's walking up this mountain or whatever, and it just jumps back and forth between a regular Chadwick Boseman costume and then CG T'Challa, and it's so obvious and it's glaring, and I'm just like, couldn't you have just filmed this somewhere out in the wilderness and actually have these guys doing this? It's not a dramatic action scene or anything where, you know, you need to use CG, but it was really jarring. It's not enough to knock the movie down, but it's something that I do have to mention, because the cinematography of this movie and the way they shot certain things, I was kind of like, yo, what's happening? Everything is just jumping from one thing to another thing, and when you have really distracting CG, it's just a recipe for a disaster, man. I'm not going to say it was as bad as some of the recent Transformers movies, but it's definitely something that I have to point out, because as a person who loves, you know, the Marvel movies and just seeing a lot of the practical effects that went into some of these films, it's just some of the CG aspects is kind of, we got to do better. Hashtag do better on that, man. Especially considering this is a $200 million budget movie. Just seeing CG T'Challa fighting with Killmonger, it looked really, really awkward. I mean, maybe we're at that point where we can't have these practical effects of people jumping around on wires and such for liability reasons or what have you, but man, we just gotta throw some more money at the special effects then, because it was just kind of awkward. It's like, oh, this looks really great. Oh boy, that looks unfinished, man. And you know me, man, I love these Marvel movies, but I'm not gonna sugarcoat things. If we're gonna bash on one movie like Justice League for having unfinished and really choppy CGI, I think we have to do the same logically for Black Panther. Granted, this is a better movie than Justice League and it's kind of low on the list of complaints, but I digress. I'm just keeping it real like I do. Now, moving into some of the other things, the cast is just, yo, hands down the best cast in all of a Marvel movie, especially if you're, you know, ignoring the ensemble pieces where they come together for the Avengers. I loved every single character in this movie, from T'Challa, from the Dora Milaje. Shuri is my new favorite Disney princess. I love just everything about her character and how she's just so spunky and sassy, and she's got a lot of humor attached to her. I love everyone, you know. This is just a incredible cast of not just black actors, but just incredible actors working today. They got some of the biggest names out there giving great performances. You know, you got Angela Bassett in here, you got Forrest Whitaker, and you know, unfortunately that Wakandan healthcare couldn't fix that Forrest Whitaker eye. But hey man, he was good in the movie for his role. And there's a lot about this movie that's just great, like not just the acting, but the writing in the film flows very well. It feels very organic. The humor, and this is one of the best parts about this, the humor, for the first time in a very long time in a Marvel movie, actually feels like it's warranted. Now, I loved Spider-Man Homecoming, I loved Thor Ragnarok, I loved Guardians Volume 2, but if I'm gonna be real with y'all, there were certain scenes in all those movies where I'm just sitting there like, okay, don't make a joke. You don't need to make a joke. Keep this as it is. I don't think anyone needs an extra laugh. Oh, they went for it, man. It's just like, again, it's not enough to bog those movies down, but the humor in here feels really organic. It doesn't feel like we're gonna hit you with a punchline just to make it funny and add some humor. The humor was handled very well, I felt. And just in addition to that, everything just works in the movie. That's a common theme about the film. Everything works. There's nothing that's really inherently wrong with it. I think that it stands on its own 2 feet as a standalone movie because it tackles a lot of things that you would see in a movie talking about a nation like Wakanda, which has been isolated for like such a large amount of time, and you're getting into discussion on maybe it is time for us to go into the real world and branch out and do things because we feel like it's necessary, but at the same time, we've survived for so long. Why do we have to change the status quo, especially considering there's a lot of messed up stuff happening in the world? It's something that, you know, it's a thing that can be really explored in movies, and I love how they tackled it in this one. You know, it's political, but not too political. It doesn't make a case of, oh, we need to do this, and we're gonna give you all these points, and this is why we need to do this, and this is the best option. No, it keeps you kind of guessing, you know, maybe there is no right way to do things. And that's what I felt. I know a lot of people feel that it was pro-globalization and pro this and that. Yeah, it probably is, but I feel like they sort of made a compelling argument, especially if you're looking at a nation that, like I said, has been isolated for such a large amount of time. Is this really what we want to do? So in that sense, it is a political movie like Winter Soldier. Granted, it doesn't handle the traits in Winter Soldier. It doesn't handle it as good as that movie, but I think for what they were going for, it handles it fairly well. Now, there's a couple of things that I need to point out. First and foremost, we are getting into the spoiler territory. I can't really talk about anything else in the movie outside of that. So yeah, we're diving into it right now. Let's talk about one of my, unfortunately, my biggest problems with the movie, and it has to do with the handling of the character Killmonger in addition to the pacing. Now, when I say the handling of the character Killmonger, this isn't a Mandarin Iron Man 3 where they just go above and beyond and ruin him. This isn't a case of what they did with Christopher Eccleston in Thor: The Dark World, and they just waste the character. No, I really love Michael B. Jordan's performance in this movie. For better or for worse, he's kind of like Samuel L. Jackson and a lot of these other actors who pretty much plays themselves in every single movie, but it just works because Michael B. Jordan is a great actor. Johnny Young Bosch, as a voice actor, doesn't have a lot of range, but he succeeds and he keeps getting work because he is a great actor. He gives great performances. So I'm watching this movie and I'm not looking at Eric Killmonger. I'm looking at Michael B. Jordan. Like, I feel like Michael B. Jordan has this starting point in every single movie, and you could insert this Michael B. Jordan in this movie and it probably wouldn't be any different. I feel like it's just the different stages in the life of the Michael B. Jordan actor. So yeah, I love his performance. I love what he stood for. I loved that, you know, it's kind of like a revenge story and all the things that come with that. However, I felt like they should have saved this character arc, this character story about, you know, Wakanda versus the world and what it means. I felt like they should have saved this for a second movie because Killmonger was not really in the movie to justify all of this, like, we're gonna make a big deal about him wanting to get the throne and become king, you know, as revenge, and we're gonna make the world start over, as he says. I felt like they really rushed that plot entirely because Killmonger's in the movie for like a good 5 minutes at the beginning. He disappears for a while and then he comes back later on, and then it's just nonstop Killmonger plotting. He's gonna do this and that to the point where it's like, whoa, hold the phone for a second. If we had gotten maybe a Killmonger-focused movie, not necessarily an origin story, but if we got a Killmonger movie where he's the sole primary villain, and this was done, sorry, that's Nugget running around in the background. If this was done in a second movie where we already know Wakanda and we know their stances on things, I felt like it could have been executed better because we already know about Wakanda. In this movie, we're learning about Wakanda, we're getting used to Wakanda, and then all of a sudden Michael B. Jordan shows up, saying, hey, auntie, like, I'm here for the throne. It's like, whoa, slow down, man. And I feel like learning about Wakanda, it kind of takes a back seat. Like, there's all the tribes in Wakanda that exist, and you got a little glimpse of it in the beginning of the movie, but after that, it's just kind of like, all right, they're just tribes. And it kind of sucks because there's one tribe, the Jabari, where they introduced the character M'Baku, who I really like. I like this character. I like what they were going for, and then he just shows up for 5 minutes, disappears, and then he comes out at the end to help out, and it's like, okay, that's it. That's all your relevance in the movie? Wow, man, I want to know why you were so isolated from everything else. I wanted to know more about the political aspects of Wakanda and why you have all these different tribes and they're isolated. Of course, you can chalk it up to, well, you gotta think that maybe they're just more radical and extreme than all these guys who are pacifists. Maybe, but again, I'd rather see and learn more about that, especially because this is such a rich and dense world that you could make this into a franchise in and of itself. I think that would be awesome, and I think that'd be great for Wakanda, as opposed to learning a bit about Wakanda and then rushing into this whole isolationist versus globalist mindset and the tropes that come for that, man. And that was, I think, the biggest problem I had in the movie. I felt like if they just spaced this out a bit, maybe had a solo movie about Wakanda and learning about that first, and then do this in a sequel, it would create longevity, and you can actually make a case that, okay, maybe there is something to being isolated for such a large amount of time. Maybe it is better to be isolated. But then again, what Killmonger's saying might be true. Granted, he's very radical in his thought process behind it, but sometimes to build a better world, sometimes it means tearing the old one down. So it's like Winter Soldier in that respect. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just his whole character arc and getting rushed in there and everything else taking a backseat was kind of an issue. Same thing with the character of Claw. It's like, why was Claw in this movie? I think Claw was in this movie because they were like, yo, we introduced him in Age of Ultron. He introduced Vibranium, so it's like, all right, we're going to introduce him in this one too for the sake of. You know what I'm saying? I felt like if they just took out Claw completely and focused on Killmonger, it would have been a better movie because of it. But as it stands, he's just there to do some Claw things, and then he dies at the hands of Michael B. Jordan, who again just shows up out of the blue and then rushes into his plot. But yeah, other than that, I think like that's really the biggest problem I had in the movie. I felt like they were trying to make a Black Panther movie in addition to do a sequel, man. You know what it honestly feels like? A lot of the things in this movie feel like The Dark Knight Rises, but done earlier and not as offensive. You know what I'm saying? Like, because with The Dark Knight Rises, all the stuff that went on in that movie, it's like, whoa, man. It's like, get to the point. Oh, why are you rushing into this? Why are you rushing into that? It's like a hodgepodge of fuckery. But this one, it's like, okay, this is a better movie, and they're gonna, fight towards the end, but was that really warranted? Did they earn that? All right, it's not as offensive, so, all right, it's still a good movie. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, when I say the movie is excellent, but I still have problems with it. Like, you can like a movie so much to the point where you think this is really great, but just feel like, all right, if they just did this, I think it would have been like top tier shit. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums up what I thought about Black Panther. I loved every single character that was in the movie. Just to get into the whole, I'm a black man, so I have to comment on this. I love the representation of, first off, strong black women in movies. I think that's been lacking, severely lacking for the longest time. And I loved how they're just no nonsense. I mean, of course, if you read the comics, you know that these characters are no nonsense. But I just love seeing them on screen. And as a black man, I do feel some type of way that we actually do have a movie like this. Yes, it is first and foremost a Marvel movie, but I also think this is a great black movie. And I hope that this is a wake-up call to directors like Tyler Perry and all these people that you can make a movie with a predominantly black cast and not have it be slapstick humor appealing to the love and hip-hop crowd. And, honestly, I think the majority of damage that has happened in black entertainment has come from the black community, and because we accept these things as sort of, oh, we have to support it because it is black people on screen. No, we should demand better. We've gotten better. We've gotten amazing sitcoms in the past featuring a predominantly black cast, and they were amazing, and they tackled real stuff. And then compare that to nowadays, you don't have a show on the level of Fresh Prince or The Jeffersons, like those type of shows. You just don't. What do we get? All these things like Power or freaking Empire. Is that the show with Terrence Howard or whatever? I'm like, really? These are the shows that we're gonna be talking about? Is Power even a predominantly black show? I have no idea, but I know a ton of black folk are talking about that. I'm just like, all right, okay. Can we get like more movies on the level of Black Panther? And I know I'm gonna get some angry black people in the comments saying, "Oh, you're a self-hating black man that if you don't want, your people to succeed." I'm like, no, I want them to succeed in doing good shit. Just because something is black does not mean it is automatically great. Yeah, I said it. Anyways, from me for now, my name is NGS signing out, and like always, I will catch you guys later. Wakanda forever. And I probably still got that wrong.